every single morning, millions of people sit down and eat a slice of bread, completely unaware of what is happening inside their body the moment they swallow it. And when researchers started measuring what that one daily slice was doing to human blood sugar levels over time, the findings were difficult to ignore. Today, we are breaking down one of the most common breakfast debates in the world: white bread versus whole wheat bread. And we are going to follow the science wherever it leads. If this is the kind of content you want to see more of, hitting that subscribe button takes less than 2 seconds. For most of human history, bread was not white. It was dense, dark, and full of everything the grain had to offer. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The grain was stripped down, refined, and transformed into the soft, pale loaf that now sits on nearly every kitchen counter in America. And that transformation, as simple as it sounds, set off a chain of events inside the human body that scientists are still working to fully understand. To understand what is really going on, we need to go back to the beginning, to the wheat kernel itself. A wheat kernel has 3 parts: the bran, which is the tough outer shell packed with fiber; the germ, which is the nutrient-rich core containing vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats; and the endosperm, which is the starchy inner layer that provides energy. When whole wheat bread is made, all 3 parts are used. When white bread is made, the bran and the germ are removed entirely. What remains is almost pure starch, and that changes everything about how your body responds to it. The moment white bread enters your mouth, digestion begins almost immediately. Because the fiber has been stripped away, the starch breaks down rapidly into glucose and floods the bloodstream in a matter of minutes. Your pancreas detects this sudden rise and releases a large wave of insulin to bring those levels back down. This cycle, rapid spike, rapid crash, happens every single time you eat white bread. And here is where the story starts to get more complicated than most people expect. Whole wheat bread tells a completely different story. Because the bran and the germ are still intact, digestion slows significantly. The fiber acts as a barrier, allowing glucose to enter the bloodstream gradually and steadily. Insulin is released in a much smaller, more controlled amount. Energy levels remain stable, and the body is not forced into the same repeated cycle of highs and lows that white bread creates. But that is only the beginning of what the research is revealing. What scientists have been observing over decades of nutritional research is that the repeated insulin spikes caused by refined carbohydrates like white bread may contribute to a condition called insulin resistance over time. Insulin resistance is when the body's cells gradually stop responding to insulin as effectively as they once did. This does not happen overnight. It is a slow, quiet process that unfolds over months and years of consistent dietary patterns. And it is a process that has been linked in research to a wide range of metabolic concerns that affect millions of Americans every single year. But the blood sugar story is not the only chapter here. When the bran and the germ are removed from wheat during the refining process, the bread loses a significant portion of its original nutritional value. Whole wheat bread naturally contains B vitamins, including thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and folate. It contains iron, magnesium, and zinc. It contains dietary fiber in amounts that support digestive health, help maintain a feeling of fullness, and may contribute to healthy cholesterol levels, according to ongoing nutritional research. White bread, after refinement, retains very little of this. Some of what is lost is added back artificially through a process called fortification. But researchers continue to debate whether artificially added nutrients behave the same way inside the body as nutrients that were never removed in the first place. There is also the question of gut health, an area of nutritional science that has expanded dramatically over the past. The human gut contains trillions of microorganisms that play a role in digestion, immune function, and even mood regulation. Research suggests that dietary fiber, the kind found in whole wheat bread, serves as a fuel source for beneficial gut bacteria. When those bacteria are well fed, They produce compounds that may support the integrity of the gut lining and contribute to overall health in ways scientists are still mapping out. White bread, with its dramatically lower fiber content, provides significantly less of this kind of support. Now here is something that does not get discussed nearly enough. Not all whole wheat bread is created equal. Walking down a grocery aisle in the United States, you will find dozens of loaves labeled with words like multigrain, made with whole wheat, or contains whole grains. These labels are not always what they appear to be. The only label that guarantees the full grain is present is one that lists whole wheat flour or 100% whole wheat as the very first ingredient. Everything else may still contain significant amounts of refined flour despite the health-forward packaging. This distinction matters more than most people realize when they are standing in that grocery aisle making what they believe is the healthier choice. And what about gluten? The protein found in wheat that has become one of the most debated topics in American nutrition over the past decade. For people with celiac disease, an autoimmune condition affecting roughly 1% of the population, gluten causes a serious immune response and must be avoided entirely. For people with non-celiac gluten sensitivity, consumption may cause digestive discomfort. But for the vast majority of the population, current research does not support the idea that gluten itself is harmful. What the research does support is that the fiber, nutrients, and slower digestion profile of whole wheat offer measurable advantages over the stripped-down version. Regardless of the gluten conversation, there is one more layer to this story that rarely makes it into mainstream conversations about bread, and it has to do with how these two types of bread affect appetite and how much a person eats throughout the rest of the day. Studies examining satiety, the feeling of fullness and satisfaction after eating, have consistently found that the higher fiber content of whole wheat bread leads to a stronger and longer lasting sense of fullness compared to white bread. This means that people who start their morning with whole wheat bread tend to consume fewer total calories over the course of the day, not because they are consciously restricting themselves, but because their body is simply not sending the same hunger signals as aggressively. White bread, because of its rapid digestion and the insulin crash that follows, tends to trigger hunger again relatively quickly after eating. And that cycle, eat, spike, crash, hunger, eat again, is something that researchers studying long-term dietary patterns have identified as a significant contributor to overall caloric intake in the American diet. The bread itself may seem like a small detail, but when that detail is repeated twice a day, every day, for years, the cumulative effect is anything but small. Now let us look at this from a different angle, one that does not get enough attention in conversations about food and health. The economics of bread tell a story of their own. Whole wheat bread consistently costs more than white bread at the retail level across the United States. The average price difference sits somewhere between 30 and 60 cents per loaf, depending on the region and the retailer. That gap may seem small in isolation, but when you consider the broader picture, it begins to look very different. The United States is one of the largest wheat producers in the world, yet the majority of wheat grown domestically is refined before it reaches the consumer. Countries like Australia, Canada, and several nations across Europe have seen a significant shift in recent decades toward whole grain consumption at the population level, and researchers tracking those populations have noted differences in certain metabolic health indicators that economists and public health officials now study closely. From a purely financial standpoint, the question worth asking is not just what does this loaf cost today, but what does the long-term dietary pattern cost? Research published by institutions studying preventive health economics in the United States has suggested that diets higher in refined carbohydrates are associated with greater long-term healthcare utilization. That is not a statement about any individual. It is a pattern observed across large population studies, and it is a pattern that insurance analysts, nutritional economists, and public health researchers are paying close attention to as America continues to grapple with the rising cost of managing diet-related health conditions. For the everyday consumer, the most financially sound perspective may be this. Whole wheat bread costs slightly more per loaf, but it provides more fiber, more vitamins, more minerals, and a slower, more stable energy release per slice. Whether that trade-off makes sense depends entirely on individual circumstances, budget considerations, and personal health goals. What the data does seem to suggest is that understanding what you are buying and what has been removed before it reached your hands is the first step toward making a genuinely informed decision. If this is the kind of content you want to see more of, hitting that subscribe button takes less than 2 seconds. And every week we bring you another comparison just like this one, breaking down the foods you eat every single day so you can understand exactly what they are doing inside your body. We do not tell you what to eat. We follow the research and we lay it out clearly so you can make the decision that is right for you. The next video is already on its way, and you do not want to miss it.